For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's Wednesday practice of Oregon Week. Now today was a defensive day, meaning we got to talk to defensive players and coaches. It was a short day though. We didn't get to talk to many guys, but Dan, what were their takeaways from this Oregon team, specifically Justin Herbert, their first round quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I heard one of the guys behind me saying, often you get to see a 6'6", 230-pound guy, and you knew they were talking about Justin Herbert. But I get the sense that as much as you could be talking, I think they're now in that part of the season where let's just play the game. We don't need to talk about it too much. We just, we know who they are. They know who we are. Let's just play the game. It's not so much about talking about it, and not so much about talking about last week. They got a win, got out of there. They played better as the game went on, and that's all you have to say about the Colorado game. And had a lot of young guys. Probably still going to have a lot of young guys this week, but I get the sense it's more of let's just go play.
Interesting. But in that sense, what are your takeaways from Justin Herbert? What kind of damage can he do to this USC secondary?
I think if he had USC's receiving core, he'd really be dangerous. I think they've lost their tight end, the best, their top receiver. They spread it out. There's no question. They spread it out, and they'll be bringing guys back who are Southern California guys. Who Micah Pittman, Michael's younger brother. The little kid from Rancho Cucamonga, whose name escapes me right now, but they'll have kids that really want to play well in the Coliseum and coming back home. So I think that can be a two-edged sword. They want to play too much, or they really put a little more pressure on them. I think it's going to be. I think they're looking to say, let's stand off. Let's have our defense stand those guys off, and maybe the offense wins this week. You look back at the Colorado game, and the defense came around in the fourth quarter, and the offense made like 5 or 6 great plays over the Colorado game, and that was enough to win it. And they didn't do anything to lose it. And I think they're looking at, even though how much better Oregon is than Colorado, that maybe to some extent that might be the model. That don't lose it, don't beat yourself, and have the defense give you a chance to win. And the only way they win that game is if the defense shuts Colorado out in the fourth quarter. So this week, they're not going for a shutout, but it's just a matter of, I think they've got to disrupt Herbert. They've got to get after him. Maybe they feel like we've got maybe more athletes here at USC. That's kind of their thinking, but. I think they're going to be very conscious of him.
Yeah. Well, to get after him, you have to get past Oregon's offensive line, a veteran group, but they also tout Penei Sewell, who was once a kid that USC was trying to recruit here at the university. So one of the guys we wanted to talk to get more information about Oregon's offensive line was defensive line coach Chad Kay. He's always very insightful, but he escaped today. So, Dan, I'm going to point to you. Yeah. What are your takeaways from this offensive line? How can USC's pass rush get to Justin Herbert?
Well, I think USC's got pretty, in terms of athleticism, in terms of, if they had more people on the edge that were healthy, that's one thing. But USC's, done a pretty good job of being pretty athletic and getting after quarterbacks. I think, you've got an Oregon team that's, the head coach is a former offensive lineman, and he's been very invested in bringing an offensive line that, can get the job done at Oregon. And so I think it'd be a big challenge for this, the USC defensive front. But I think they look like they're pretty confident that they can make some plays and do some disrupting and run to the football. And but I just think this is their test. I think this is their chance to say, we've had people say some good things about us. We haven't always been there. And they've had, games where they just didn't always seem to be there. But this is their chance, I think, to prove themselves, and against an Oregon offensive line that everybody is, just completely convinced is, the best offensive line in the league. USC's maybe late developing offensive line might want to challenge that, but I think they got to go out there and do more than just try to keep Herbert under control.
Yeah.
I think they really got to get after him. I think they got to, and how Clancy chooses to call that. I think Clancy goes into games giving himself a lot of different ways to go in terms of his calls. And as he was saying today, he just tries to get into the flow of the game and then mix things up and change things around. And that worked certainly at Colorado.
Yeah.
They got them all kind of out of their rhythm, and they weren't sure what USC was going to do. Whether they keep that model and just try to keep them guessing, I think that might be a way that you see them go and doing things that they haven't always done, or doing different things, one play after another. I think they'll be fairly active and not be quite as passive as sometimes where they just try to, stalemate and what have you. But I think you're right. That'll be if they can really handle the Oregon offensive line, I think they've got a real chance.
Yeah. Well, what options does Clancy Pendergast have now that it looks like Christian Rector will be back in the lineup? With Caleb Turnblade and Hunter Eccles, you get more of a speed option, not really a bigger body option. With Christian Rector, how does that affect that lineup?
Well, John Houston was saying that gives us another leader, a vocal guy on the field. I think it's good that they really did rest Christian, and it looks like he will be healthy. But you've got other people who've been playing that give you other options to go out there. I mean, we're not going to probably, I would guess, not see Drake Jackson, but you've got a Caleb Tremblay who can play on the edge and play inside. And so I think they still have some of the options and some of the ways that they can go that maybe earlier in the year they couldn't do that. So, but I would look for Clancy to mix things up and give lots of different looks and try to see if how Oregon handles that. And I'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. One of the guys you got to talk to today was Isaac Taylor Stewart, who actually played through sickness on Friday against Colorado. He was throwing up pregame and I think sometimes at the half. But he said it took till Monday to get over that sickness. But it sounds like he's good to go for Saturday.
Yeah, he was. He was all excited Tuesday because he was feeling good coming out to practice, and Wednesday. And I know there were some people wondering, was this one of those altitude kind of deals? And he wasn't sure. He said, I don't know. I was just not feeling good at all. And talking about what it's like to be on the sideline when you're like a second-year guy, and everybody out there is like a first-year guy, and it's like, holy criminy, what are we doing? What are we doing? And he said, we've been working hard, and Clancy talked about how impressed he is with what Greg Burns has done to get guys ready. And he said, I honestly really feel like if they're out there, they're ready to go. And he said, you're tempted sometimes when you're calling the plays in the secondary and you've got a really young freshman lining up across from, say, Laviska Chenault. You're thinking, should I, call the defense based on that matchup, or do I just call the defense not worrying about who our guy is or how inexperienced he is? And he said, you try to go where you call it situationally the way you would no matter what. And he said, I think we did a pretty good job as the game went on. We just said we're going to call it however we have to call it in the situation that we find ourselves, and not worry about how many freshmen do you have out there. He said, you notice it, but you don't want to think about it. So that was one of those games where you just thought, who are those guys? And they hung in there. That fourth quarter, you could hardly ask for more from them, and to get Isaac Taylor back is really, I think, a real plus. And so they'll have enough guys who played enough football out there in the secondary. So we'll see. They're going to be at home. This is a challenge. I mean, I think they like the idea they're going up against a Heisman candidate sort of a guy, and a guy who's gotten all the so much of the pub in the Pac-12, and I think they really are excited about that opportunity. But they have kind of a confidence that even if it was just Colorado, they still have a confidence that they did what they were supposed to do. They didn't screw up. They didn't have any real busts and all of that. And you can't replace that kind of experience.
Yeah, we'll get to your predictions in a little bit,
Good.
but you mentioned the return of ITS. USC also looks like they'll get Chris Steele back, which is another boost for their secondary. A new wrinkle that we did saw as far as injuries go today was Palier Naotote. He warmed up with the team. He did stretching, but he wasn't in pads. And then when we came back in after the closed practice ended, he had his shoulder pads and his helmet with him. And I kind of interrogated him a little bit and was like, how much did he do today? And he was like, I did a good bit. And then I was like, well, what does it look like for Oregon? And he's like, we'll see. You'll have to ask the coaches. So, of course, they're not going to tell us that. But it seems like he, like you said yesterday, is the one guy who might be able to go on Saturday. But as far as that, everyone else is still day-to-day. But it looks like that could be a positive for USC in that sense.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm the one that's starting to advocate how good would Palier be if you just put him on one side and say, meet Drake Jackson at the quarterback or whatever, rather than planting in the middle. I mean, he just, every time I see him, he looks like he's growing and getting bigger and stronger and taller. And but I think in a game like this, if he can give you some plays, and I don't know, did they want to not put his gear on until we left? I don't know. But he's been looking like he's getting really close.
Yeah.
I mean, that, and I don't know how late it was last week. We still saw him in a boot. And then he didn't look the same coming out this week. He looked like he'd come back a long way. But, yeah, if he's ready to go, and just to give you some plays and some, pass rush or whatever you're going to get out of him. And I think what people don't understand with this team, and a lot of the critics, John Houston in the Pro Football Focus, the people that analyze every player, every play on every team, has John Houston as the top linebacker in the Pac-12 the last 2 weeks, graded out at like whatever it was, 89% or something terrific like that. So I think USC's getting more football out of John Houston than a lot of people realize, because he's kind of that quiet, leader guy that keeps them together, keeps them calm. And if he gets Christian Rector out there with him, I think he likes the idea of having some help there. And it wasn't much good to put Christian out there when his ankle wasn't better. But if his ankle, he certainly looked like he was feeling good after practice. So, so again, I mean, I think I'm just looking forward to this game as a game. I just think this ought to be fun. You want USC to be in these kinds of games. You wish they had a better record going into this game, and they certainly could have had. But this game really matters to both USC and Oregon and to the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So makes it pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. In that sense, Dan, how do you think this one's going to go on Saturday? What's your feel for this?
I think it's just how many points do you think they're going to score?
They meaning USC?
Actually, both. I'm thinking both scoring. It wouldn't shock me if it was the same score as last week, 35-31.
For who, though?
USC.
Okay.
They're playing at home. I think they have the big play capability against Oregon. I think they do. I think Oregon's going to be hard to just completely, shut down. Obviously, they haven't had that much trouble in the Pac-12 till last week. But I think I would go with a score like that.
Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up here on a Wednesday?
No, let's just get to the game. I'm glad it's not a late night game. I think the earlier the better. I know the Fox crew is already here at practice this week. Joel Klatt and Jenny Taft, and who's going to do the play-by-play?
I think it's Gus Johnson, I believe, in that crew.
So he may not come in on Wednesday, which is kind of early. But Fox is probably pretty excited. This is not a bad game for Fox to have.
Yep. It'll be fun for sure. But that's going to wrap it up for USC's Wednesday practice of Oregon Week. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out uscfootball.com.